New topic. Whoa, something different that I'm going to be talking about for once. We're going to dive into new gen stuff. Yes, I don't really talk a lot about new gen on here. You know me as like the PlayStation girl, PS1 preferably, and I talk mainly about retro. But in recent events, whenever it came to PSN being down, oh shocker, Sony, whoa, that led me to want to talk about this for a second. So as you all know, I'm always for physical media whenever it comes to games. I don't really like digital stuff. It's not my thing. Yes, a lot of people will say that digital is the new way. That's the way it's going to be because slowly physical is dying. Well, that may be the case in some aspects, but not necessarily fully on. So I'm going to talk about what I think as far as like physical versus digital and why I think physical is better. Talk about the big thing in the room, the one that I kind of hinted at earlier about the PlayStation Network being down, accessibility. Now, whenever you think of the PlayStation digital world, there's a lot of things that are accessible, especially if you're a, pro member, Prime member, whatever the fuck, membership that you have with Sony. You get free games per month, you have them in your little library, they're there if you want to play them, right? Well, what happens when PlayStation, the network for that goes down? Case in point, like recently, they're in there sitting chilling, and you can't go download a goddamn thing because it's down. The only way that you could play that stuff is if it's already downloaded to the console. There's no way to access it unless that is the case in point. And here's the thing, whenever you actually have your console, whenever you have a shit ton of stuff on there, the console only has so much memory. So you're gonna have to go out and buy more memory for it if you want to put stuff on there. You don't want to fucking buttload that shit up. So there's another thing about digital that I don't like is because, there's that constant fear of things going down and you're not going to be able to access it, not going to be able to play it, versus physical, you could just pop it in and you're good to go. Now, I will say this, there are some physical games, yes, I know for new gen, that have online features that you can't access unless you are online. I get that, but not every game is totally online. Not like fucking Fortnite. I'm not a Fortnite fan. There's other stuff that you can play offline. I mean, Bloodborne you can play offline. So many great games for new gen stuff that you can play, but I'm not an expert whenever it comes to new gen. I'm more as far as like on the retrospect for retro games, so I don't really play a lot of new gen stuff. I have a PS5, I have a Switch, I don't have a new gen Xbox because I don't like Xbox stuff. I've never really been like an Xbox fangirl. I have my 360 and a small amount of games, but that's really it. So whenever it comes to that, I don't really get a lot of time to play new gen stuff. It's not just the time, there's just not been anything out that has wowed me in the last few years besides Elden Ring. Elden Ring was cool, and there's some other things, the Silent Hill 2 remake. I mean, case in point, I have it right here for PS5. It wasn't bad. I gave it a 7 out of 10. I'm a really huge fan of the original one on the PS2. That is my favorite one. I'm a big Pyramid Head girl. I love Pyramid Head. But this one, the graphics are great, but there's some changes that I didn't care for. I'm not really a big fan of remakes. There's only been like one remake in the entirety of me playing games that I can think of that I actually liked a lot, which was the OG Resident Evil remake on the GameCube. That one was perfect. 10 out of 10. It was the greatest remake I've ever played. Anyway, moving on. I mean, I just don't really have the time to play stuff. I mean, I haven't even got to play Demon's Souls, the remake of this yet. I haven't even got to play Baldur's Gate 3 yet, and I like Baldur's Gate! Yeah, this is still sealed, man. I just don't have the time to, and honestly, I haven't really felt like I've been in the mood to because of all this, like, the games just don't really, sway me to want to play them anymore. And another thing, too, this is going into, like, the digital age and things that, whenever it comes to AAA companies, the microtransactions and stuff are horrendous. Buy this skin here, you could buy this here, oh, buy this upgrade here, and the DLC. Don't even get me started with that. Having to pay, like, $30 to $40 for more add-on content. Yes, I've done it. Sure, I did it with Bloodborne. Holy shit, why? Because I love Bloodborne. It's probably my favorite From Software game of all time. But there's still that annoyance to where I have to buy more content for a game that was already published, which is a pain in the ass, versus whenever I look at my retro collection, it's done. Sure, there may be bugs, there may be glitches, there may be some scratches, there may be some issues with that, but that's what resurfacing's for. You can always get a better copy if you want to, especially if it's a cheaper game, and a lot of these games, hold a testament to time. They'll play better than fucking new gen stuff in some aspects. Hell, I would rather play on my PS2 and enjoy my PlayStation 1 library versus anything new gen in this day and age. And that's why I don't really collect a lot of new gen stuff either anymore too. That's another reason why I don't. is because of the fact that there's just not really a lot that I want to play, and I've kind of, you know, found a new rekindled love for retro stuff whenever it comes to that. So that's why it's a very minimal amount that I have. I probably only have like about, I want to say 40 games for my PS5. That's it. Maybe less. I don't know. That's just going out the seat of my ass right now. Some of them are still sealed because I haven't even gotten to play them yet. I mean, I still have Armored Core 6 I haven't even fucking played yet. I haven't even played it yet. Switch games are the same way. I remember when I got my Switch. My Switch, I loved it. I got it at launch. Still have my launch one. I had a couple problems with it. The stick drift, of course, a lot of people experienced that. If you didn't experience that, you were one of the lucky ones. And then the other thing that I actually had to send it to Nintendo to actually fix was it was overheating too. But, you know, they fixed it. I think I had to pay $100 to get it fixed. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's still a pain in the ass to deal with that. But anyway, you know, consoles, you know, they break, they get fixed. Same thing with retro. So it's not anything new that I haven't experienced whenever it comes to that. But whenever it comes to new gen and thinking about digital, physical will always be superior. Yes, it may be a dying thing for a lot of people, and people are swayed for digital because of the fact that, you know, space is a big thing for a lot of people too, as far as collecting. Yeah, collecting does take up a lot of space, and digital definitely is space free. But, you know, here's another thing too that you haven't thought about. When you buy that digital stuff, you don't own that. Think about that for a minute. You don't own those games, technically. You buy them, they're there, but they can be gone at the drop of a hat. They could be. They could be gone. They could be discontinued. Who the fuck knows? They might not work. So that's the thing about digital too. Things like that can just disappear. That's another reason. Emulation is a whole other aspect that I can go into. But you don't own those games, and things like that could just drop like that. Steam is another big thing that I don't really go into. I just made my Steam account like maybe 2 years ago. I have like 4 games on there because I have like Trombone Champ, I have Owlboy, and then I think 2 more. I don't really play those, to be honest, because I'd never really had a fascination for digital media or PC gaming really in that aspect either. But it just goes to show you that things can be taken away at the drop of a hat, considering the fact that how digital is not really as reliable as physical stuff. Now, a lot of the things whenever I think of, you know, another thing whenever it comes to digital, a lot of companies are going digital because it's cheaper. For them it is. Not necessarily for you, because sometimes the digital copy could be a little bit more. I've seen this. The digital copy of a game could be a little bit more than a physical copy, which is, you know, you would think it would be the opposite. You think it'd be cheaper versus that, but it's not always the case. Sometimes that can actually be, you know, flip-flop with that. The companies are looking at the digital world, you know, they're thinking this is the future. People want the accessibility of that. We're going to go this way because it's cheaper for us versus having to produce the disc, having to go out here and, you know, get the cases and all that rigmarole. I mean, they stopped making manuals a long time ago, so there's that. So they're slowly trying to pull those off. So that way they don't have to deal with big retailers either, like Target and Walmart and all that mess too. That way they could just fixate on digital only for that. So that's another thing too that they're thinking of whenever it comes to that, which I hate, but you know, it is what it is. So that's why preservation of physical is so important to me. That's why we have to keep shouting. We have to keep letting them know, hey, we want these physical copies. I want to hold these games in my hand. I want to pop that disc in my actual PlayStation 5, pop that cartridge into my Switch, whatever the hell it is. I don't want to just have a code to download something. It just doesn't feel right to me. I mean, you know, you could say nostalgia is the thing that's kicking in my ass, literally, which you're right. Yeah, that is part of it. But also, I think it's just a better way to experience games versus having these goddamn fucking digital things. Now, going back to retro for a second, another thing that a lot of people don't realize, yes, there's some bugginess and stuff with like a lot of retro games, but holy fucking shit, look at the shit that we got to deal with new gen stuff. Do I need to remind you of Cyberpunk 2077? How much of a goddamn fire starter that fucking shit was whenever it first came out. Yes, Cyberpunk 2077 is fantastic. Yes, but it was a glitchy fucking mess. It took so many updates for them to fucking fix that shit. I mean, games are notorious for, you know, glitching and stuff like that, but sometimes whenever stuff rolls out, it's patch after patch after patch after patch versus stuff that you can get, for actual physical games. For retro, you don't need patches for. You pop it in, you play what you got, and then that's how it is. You call it a day. That's why I prefer retro, again, versus new gen, but we're mainly talking about, well, it kind of ties hand in hand with the digital/physical stuff, because I'm looking more toward the retro side of the physical versus new gen, but then again, it's still fun to actually play physical stuff new gen whenever it's something I really want to get, like I did with, Silent Hill 2, because I'm a fan, so I got it. But as time goes on, companies fixate on other things too. Oh boy. I talked earlier about this rant's going in a whole other direction, but then again, it's not. Because, companies fixate on something else too. They fixate on remasters and remakes of things, like Silent Hill 2, for example, Resident Evil 4 remake. But they don't want to do, other IPs. They don't want to have fresh starts a lot of the time. They want to remaster, remake, to death because money, because they're greedy. And while that might be cool to see things with upgraded graphics, it doesn't always look good. It really doesn't. It doesn't even look like they did anything either. It's just a waste of money for us whenever it comes to that. Sure, it's exciting to have it on the console. Here's a thing that I want to say that's a good example of that. Whenever it comes to physical media, I guess this does tie into what we're talking about, because physical media, there can be a downside to new gen physical media too. And case in point would be the Tomba release that came out. So, Limited Run Games did a Tomba release. As you all know, Tomba came out on PlayStation 1. Tomba 2 was on PlayStation 1 as well. Great platformers. Loved the second one. Rented it the hell out of that one. I finally got my first copy of it a long time ago. The first Tomba I had, my dad actually had bought that. So I owned that one growing up. But the second one, I didn't own until a little bit later. But I rented the shit out of it. So they released a physical copy with Limited Run Games, right? Okay, cool, great. It's going to be accessible on PlayStation 5. It was like $40. Great. Yes, I got it because I'm a big fan. I wanted to see what they were going to do with it. I wanted to see what the remaster was going to look like. I was hyped. I was excited. Well, guess what? I spent $40 on nothing. It was not worth it. Sure, I get trophies. Who the fuck cares about that? I'm not a trophy hunter, man. I will get trophies for games that I either really like, I fucking hate enough to fucking do it so that way I never have to play it again. If it's for a franchise I love, case in point, Resident Evil 3 Remake and Kingdom Hearts 3. And it just... No with the trophies, okay? There's that. And then whenever they did the remaster, they didn't update the graphics. They did the music, but the music sounds way worse than the original. I'm like, okay. And you think that the price would drop on the original. No. It didn't. See, that's the thing another people don't realize is that when people remake stuff or remaster it, it doesn't always make the original drop in price. Sometimes it does. Like, I think one case in point would be Klonoa. I want to say on PS1, that game was floating around $750 at one point, and it went down to like $450 now. So that one did drop, but the original Tomba and Tomba 2 are still floating around $100 to $150 all day long. That didn't change anything. But the thing about, going back to what I was talking about the remaster for Tomba, it just wasn't worth it because sure they added the menu, they upgraded, the music, but the graphics are still the same. That wasn't, normally when you think of a remaster, you think of like the music being updated, the graphics being updated, because that's the big one. And then, of course, little perks and extras because it's a special edition. Well, guess what that special edition included? Like I said, the music, they have a roster of the music that you can listen to. They have like different, prints that you can actually see for like the labels for PAL, the Japanese import, and then the NTSC one. They also have other things that, like the advertisements that they had back in the day. It's not really worth getting a special edition for that. Literally, it's just a money pit. At this point, this is why I don't really get stuff from Limited Run too much or from Play Asia's because it feels like a goddamn money grab. I'd rather spend my money on retro stuff, and actually play the authentic thing versus actually buying shit that literally is subpar. That's just the way I feel whenever it comes to that. Now, going back to what I was saying whenever it comes to remasters and remakes, definitely not worth it. Oh, another thing I want to mention whenever it comes to Tomba. Here's another thing about buying stuff whenever it comes to new gen. That's like literally a throw off. Whenever you do that, whenever you buy from these companies like Limited Run, or if you buy like from Play Asia, you have Chrono Cross, you have Tomba that came out, You know, some of these things are limited releases. Limited run, case in point for that one, they are limited releases. So you got these fucking resellers coming in, grabbing everything from you, and basically just putting it on eBay for double the price. Go look it up. Go look up Tomba for PS5 and see how much that fucking shit's going for right now. Like, literally $80 to $90. It is fucking absurd when people do that shit. It literally makes me want to throw up in my mouth. I hate that crap. I really fucking hate that shit. Why do people do that? Anyway, yeah, because it was only $40 at launch. That's all I paid for mine, literally. But people will do that. That's another thing that I hate about, like, the physical world whenever it comes to new gen stuff, too. I mean, you get that with the retro market, too. Like, it's case in point with Piglet's Big Game, or whatever the hell that game was on PS2 and GameCube. Just because someone saw a Silent Hill reference in there with the music, and then I think Pooh Bear's behind, like, the bars or something, they literally jacked that goddamn price up to, like, 90 to 100 and some bucks. Just because of that, because the person that developed it was kind of inspired by Silent Hill. Well, so we do have that in the retro market, but it's more prevalent whenever it comes to the new gen market, because new gen is hot, it's new, it's out. Retro collecting, it is a thing, but not a lot of people like deep dive into it as much as new gen stuff in this day and age, from what I'm seeing anyway. I don't see like retro channels popping off left, right, and center. I see more reselling channels popping off left, right, and center versus, you know, a retro gaming channel like myself whenever we talk about retro collecting and things like that. So that's my take on physical, on digital. Physical is definitely a better thing, but it also has its downsides, like I said, with new gen and with retro. But digital is definitely not the way to go whenever it comes to that. It's just because, you know, the inconvenience of things happening, things go down, you can't play it. You know, it has to be downloaded to your system. You may not have enough storage on there, so therefore you gotta buy more storage for it to fucking put the damn thing on there, or delete something to put it on there. So space is definitely a thing. I mean, it's just like memory cards too. Memory cards, you had to do that as well. But, you know, it's the entire fucking game. It's not like, it's the entire game that you have to delete. It's not just a save file, you know, basically that go, okay, moving on. You could just pop in the game and do it again. So you literally have to delete the whole fucking game off, which is annoying as shit. But, you know, it is what it is. Space is a big thing whenever it comes to that. Gotta buy more, oh my god. Space has always been an issue, but it just seems a little bit more inconvenient versus retro stuff, but that's just my take on it. And the big fear, like I said, is things being taken away from you at the drop of a hat because you don't own those games technically. Not really, you don't. Versus physical, it's in your hand, you bought it, you own it, it's here, it's ready, it's there. I mean, if they do take the online access off, there was a game I think called Concord. I don't know anything about Concord, I have no idea, but apparently they pretty much, it's offline, it's done, so if you have a copy of it, it's useless. So there's that too. So they could do that just as well with physical stuff that requires online access for stuff, but if not, then you're good to go with it. You just pop it in and go, and there you go. But that's just my 2 cents on the matter. It was just a rant. I went all over the place with this one. I just had to get it out, let it out, flood it out, flush it out, do everything, you know, toggle the knob a little bit. But this is the PlayStation Girl signing out. Game on!